Hey guys, welcome back to Dizzle in Motion. Today we're going to talk about the longshore union strike, the ports and docks going over there on the East Coast. And I was a little bit ignorant about it. Some of the things I heard sounded crazy, untrue, and I wanted to do a little research and share with you what I found. So let's check it out. All right, so let's get into this. There's about 45,000 workers that were involved. It's the first strike since 1977. They renew their contracts every 6 years. So the 6 year contract was up. They're looking at the cost of living, trying to negotiate their pay raises, with inflation and stuff. Everything's been crazy. A lot of people, are falling behind on things. So you got to have respect for that. Like, of course, you got to get out there and bargain for a better deal, right? For you and your family. Now, some of their demands sounded completely insane, and I was like, these guys are crazy. They're never going to get it. And it's because I didn't understand the whole story, and I'm willing to bet you don't either. So here's what I found. Just going to give you guys the facts. You can look all this stuff up yourself. So they had a bunch of demands they came out with. Their first demand was they wanted a total ban on automation. Now, automation is the future. If you look at here, watch this clip from China, by the way. And as you can see, everything is remote control, 5G, robotic, et cetera, et cetera. And that means a lot less people are needed. So, of course, these guys, it's their livelihood. They don't want to be pushed out the door. These are good careers. A lot of them pay six figures. And so they're just like looking for a way to stave that off a little bit. It's inevitable, but I think there's a happy medium there where people can be replaced through attrition and retirement and natural causes without kicking people out the door. And I think that's probably their primary fear here. So they wanted to ban automation, including the cranes, the gates, the trucks, and they wanted a 77% raise over the next 6 years. 77%. That's right. It sounds absurd, right? It is kind of, because it's $39 an hour to $63 an hour. Most of these guys make around 81K a year base, up to 200,000 a year, and it's unskilled labor, but let me stop you right there. This job is a mofo, right? It's grinding 8, 10, 12, 14-hour days, these guys, all weather, all year round, wind, snow, rain, whatever. It's like the job's got to get done. These guys are a critical part of infrastructure, just like truckers or anybody else. So my hat's off to them with absolute respect. Not a lot of people watching this video would have the fortitude physically and mentally to show up to that job every day and do good work. So hats off to them for that. Now, that being said, 77% just sounds absurd, right? Like on its merit. Well, let me dig into these stats for you. The average worker in America, because of inflation and everything else that's played out over the last 6 years while their contract was going, has seen a 24% increase in their salary. 24%. That's a lot. That's not a little bit. Now, yeah, we can argue back and forth about cost of living and is it enough? Sure, but the rest of America has gotten 24% across the board. Now, they're negotiating this contract for the next 6 years. So it's basically over half a decade. And they got to be in place for what not only inflation has occurred in the last 6 years, but what's about to happen in the 6 years after that. So when you look at that, the average American worker is projected to make in that 12-year period, if we're going through both, 36 to 42% raise. That's the average American blue-collar worker, not talking about white-collar or those of you that negotiate your own salary. And so when you think that the average U.S. worker is going to be making 40% more, 77 is still a ridiculous number, but this is a negotiation. So if you think in their minds, they know they're not going to get that and your opening number is high, it kind of makes sense, right? Now it's not as insane because now it's just 30% more and not, 70% more that it sounds at its basis when you don't know all the facts. So what was the Alliance side of the ownership offering? They were offering a 50% raise, which already sounds insane. But when you know, again, what I already told you, it's not that insane. It's just a little bit more than the average worker, industry upon industry that works hourly is going to see over the next 6 years. So they offered a 50% raise. They offered to keep the same automation limits in place, which means, no one's getting pushed out for robots for the next 6 years. They offered to triple the employer contribution to the retirements, which is crazy. That sounds great. And they were offering 50% increase in healthcare pay. So they're basically, the healthcare costs would go down by half. So that's a very fair raise to me. honestly, that sounds great. That seems like where they would want to go. Well, they said no. They threw the finger and they went on strike. So that being said, these ports have automotive stuff. That's one of the main reasons I wanted to do a video on this anyways for this channel. It's where most of the automotive stuff comes in through the country on the East Coast. Fruits and vegetables, coffee, chemicals, stuff like that. Everywhere on the East Coast around the Texas, that's basically what we're talking about here. Now, for those of you unaware, the president actually has a tool in his toolbox to deal with stuff like this. The 1947 Taft-Hartley Act allows the president to enact an 80-day cooling off period if that he determines that it's going to have a severe economic consequence on the economy in the United States, because that can lead to national security problems, banking problems, yada, yada. So it makes sense that that's there. Now, Biden was on the record as saying he didn't want to go there. He did not want to implement the Taft Act. And he said that publicly. I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory on this. It's completely speculative. But if you look at all the events that are going on this year, it is an election year, right? We got the hurricanes going on. You got tensions in the Middle East. We got inflation out of control. We got energy problems, and they're stacking up. Now, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy theory necessarily when you think about the fact and consider that if this strike goes into effect, there's going to be job losses, job numbers are going to go down, inflation could micro increase, just all kinds of bad stuff for the incumbents, and they're trying to win an election. So knowing that you have the Taft Act in your back pocket, what would have stopped him from sending Pete Buttigieg down there and make a deal with the mob boss? I mean, union boss. By the way, this guy is a character and a half, right? You guys see, does this seem like the kind of guy, I'll put a picture and a statement up by it. Does that seem like the kind of guy that wouldn't cut a backroom deal? No, absolutely would. So knowing that they could be facing 80 days, which would take them to Christmas anyways, with a cooling off period, why not agree to play ball and get something on the table now? So what they've agreed to do is come back to the table on January 15th. In the interim, remember, they were asking for 77. They were being offered 50. They're getting 62% guaranteed. That's locked in now, wage hike. They're getting the retirement contribution added, and they've agreed to discuss how automation will be implemented in January. Everything else, it sounds like it's good to go. So it's kind of interesting because there's incentive there for both sides to put this off till after the election. Obviously, it helps the incumbent party. And then obviously it helps them look like good guys, because right now when you come out and you made some of the statements that these guys made, like, hey, we'll cripple the economy and we'll do stuff like that, you're not exactly going to garner a bunch of support going into Christmas and the holidays, right? When people can't get the stuff they need for their homes and you're saying you're doing it intentionally. And again, I have the utmost respect for these guys. These guys bust their ass. And you know, it's like, oh, it's unskilled labor and they're making 100. Yeah, you go do the job. You go do the job. That job is not an easy job to do, as are a lot of other guys that grind out there, oil workers, truck drivers. Like, there's people out there that just bust their ass on a daily basis, and they're literally the backbone of America. Everybody likes to take credit, like what I do is so important. No, if you can't buy shit for your family, that guy that's making that happen is pretty damn important to you. So let's give these guys some respect and a little patience. But yeah, some of the claims they were making were absurd. And I understand that was coming from the negotiation standpoint, so we can't really internalize that too much. But what do you guys think in the comments? Do you think that there was a backroom deal here done, like I think? Or do you think they just came to their senses and realizes, hey, we're asking for too much, so if they're going to give us 62, we'll figure out the robot stuff later? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, I just wanted to set the record straight because I was ignorant on all this stuff until I went through it and looked it all up. So now you know what I know, and you can make more informed conversations about it when people talk to you. Catch you guys on the next one, and thanks for watching.